In 2011, I attended the holiday party for Timberline Brokerage and Investments as the +1 for my wife, Lisa. Lisa, or Lissy as her colleagues called her, was one of the firm's top-performing financial advisors. At the event, Lissy's colleagues, Eric Turner and her boss, Doug Mason, were animatedly discussing the profitability of RMBS, residential mortgage-backed securities. Doug strongly encouraged Lissy to invest in these RMBS products, but she refused, saying she wouldn't recommend anything to her clients that she wouldn't invest in herself. I found myself half listening to the conversation, but I couldn't help wondering why Lissy, with her keen financial acumen, wasn't investing in something that seemed so lucrative. Not wanting to embarrass her in front of her colleagues, I decided to hold my questions until we were home. Lissy had always been the more knowledgeable one about investment strategies and financial planning, so I had long entrusted our financial decisions to her. Later that night, after the party, I asked Lissy why we weren't investing in these RMBs if they were so profitable. She explained that while RMBS stood for residential mortgage-backed securities, she had serious reservations about them. She had seen troubling signs in the market, believing these securities could eventually lead to a collapse of the U.S. housing market and the broader economy. While her colleagues were focused on short-term gains, Lissy was concerned about the long-term risks, particularly a potential housing bubble burst. Given that I was a project manager for a home construction company in Mesa, Arizona, I asked how this could affect my job. Lissy advised me to start looking for opportunities in a different industry, as she was planning to do the same. She predicted that Timberline would face significant challenges when the housing bubble eventually burst. Trusting her judgment, I didn't wait and promptly sent my resume to a job recruiter. For almost a year, I received no offers. My recruiter, Frank Barrett, mentioned that the job market was already starting to show signs of an economic downturn. Then, in March 2012, Frank called me with a potential opportunity. He mentioned a possible position in Raleigh, North Carolina, with a company called Allied Auto Services. They specialized in building and franchising automobile service centers and needed project managers to oversee their expansion. While the starting salary was slightly less than what I was currently earning, Frank emphasized that there was considerable room for growth. He also noted that the job would involve significant travel across North Carolina, Virginia, and South Carolina, as the company was expanding in these states. Concerned about the economic outlook, I asked Frank how stable the company was and whether it could withstand a recession. Frank assured me that Allied Auto Services believed they would remain essential, as people would need affordable options to maintain their cars during tough economic times. I told Frank I needed to discuss the offer with Lissy and would get back to him the following day. When I got home that evening, Lissy was in the kitchen preparing her famous fried chicken, my favorite meal. After we ate, I told her about the job offer from Allied Auto Services, expecting she might be hesitant about moving to Raleigh. Instead, she surprised me by saying that Raleigh was supposed to be a beautiful place to live and asked when I would need to start. I told her that the start date was the 1st of the next month, which was just 3 weeks away. Lissy noted that this didn't leave much time, especially since she needed to give notice at Timberline and inform her clients of her departure. However, she was optimistic about the move, reiterating her concerns about the looming economic troubles that she believed would soon hit Timberline hard. Lissy wanted to research the company further before making a decision. After spending a couple of hours on her computer, she concluded that Allied Auto Services appeared to be a solid company with a good business plan. She advised me to accept the job offer. By the end of March 2012, I had moved to Raleigh and found a modest 2-bedroom apartment while Lissy stayed behind in Mesa to sell our house and notify her clients of her departure from Timberline. She informed her clients that they could either stay with another advisor at Timberline or transfer their accounts to a different firm. Lissy also sent her resume to local brokerages in Raleigh and quickly secured a position with a firm that had just opened a new office in the area. It took a month to sell our house in Mesa, and although we had to reduce the asking price by $7,500, we still managed to make a profit. When Lissy finally arrived in Raleigh, I was already deeply involved in 2 Allied Auto Services projects in the western part of the state, allowing me to be home every night. We spent the next few months exploring our new surroundings, finding that we loved the area. In the fall of 2012, we bought a foreclosed house on Cedar Creek Road, 10 miles north of Raleigh, overlooking the Neuse River. It was the only house built in a planned subdivision before the builders went bankrupt. A large colonial with 4 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms, and a 2-car garage. The house was perfect for raising a family, even though it took some time to adjust to the quiet, as there were no neighbors nearby. Lissy quickly adapted to her new job, growing her client list and reconnecting with some of her former clients from Timberline. By the beginning of 2013, the 2 projects I was managing were completed, and I took on 2 more in South Carolina, which required me to spend several nights a week away from home. This was challenging, but we were committed to staying in this job until the housing market improved, allowing me to return to the construction industry. Despite the frequent travel, we made the most of our time together when I was home. After 4 years with Allied Auto Services, I was doing well as the company continued to expand, which unfortunately meant even more time away from home. Lissy never complained, focusing on her career as an investment advisor and working towards our goal of early retirement and starting a family. In the spring of 2016, after being away for nearly a month, I returned home for a long weekend and was met by a visibly serious Lissy. She told me she had been thinking a lot about starting a family, but felt that our financial situation wasn't quite where it needed to be. She had recently learned about a new investment opportunity that could potentially allow us to achieve our goals within 2 years, enabling us to start a family and for her to become a stay-at-home mom. Lissy explained that she had met an investment advisor named Sam Donovan at a seminar and had been discussing this opportunity with him for several weeks. Sam, who had a background in similar investments, was enthusiastic about the idea and believed it could more than triple our investment. Lissy assured me that the risk was reasonable, and they would explain the details and the required investment amount once Sam arrived. Later, I heard a car pull into the driveway and went outside to meet Sam, who arrived in a sleek 2014 Porsche 911. I couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy, as I had always admired Porsches, but my job required me to drive a more practical Chevy Silverado. As we shook hands, I sized Sam up, and he likely did the same with me. He was about my height, 6'1", with neatly styled dark brown hair and a neatly trimmed beard. He had a friendly smile and spoke with a slight southern accent. When I asked where he was from, he mentioned he grew up in Kentucky and had spent the last decade in Atlanta. We entered the house, and Lissy appeared from the kitchen carrying a tray with 2 beers, a glass of white wine, and some appetizers. She remarked that since we had already met, we could get started right away. Lissy then began explaining the plan, noting that she hadn't shared the full details with me yet. Lissy recounted how a few weeks ago, she was working with a client who owned a drilling company involved in hydraulic fracturing or fracking for natural gas in Texas. The client mentioned that one of his competitors was interested in starting fracking operations in North Carolina, where the legislature had recently approved it, with drilling expected to begin the following year. This conversation sparked an idea in Lissy's mind. She explained that, legally, in order to explore, extract, or sell mineral deposits, including natural gas, a company must either own the mineral rights for the property or have a lease agreement with the rights owner. Lissy had done some research and realized that if we could acquire the mineral rights from property owners before the drilling company did, they would have to lease those rights from us to extract the gas. This could be a highly profitable venture for us. After Lissy finished, Sam quickly added that when Lissy shared her idea, he conducted his own research and confirmed she was correct. They could purchase the rights to the gas beneath the land without needing to buy the property, and he believed they could easily triple their investment if they acted quickly. Although I trusted Lissy's judgment, I was skeptical of Sam and uncertain about the risks involved. Sam explained that most landowners did not own the mineral rights under their land, as those rights had been sold decades ago. He discovered through public records that a single family owned the majority of these rights in the area they were considering. Sam had already contacted Walter Owen, the head of the family, who expressed interest in selling the rights for the right price. The Owen family had retained the mineral rights when they sold the land, anticipating oil might be discovered there, though it never was. It became clear that Lissy and Sam were committed to the plan, with or without my agreement. Trusting Lissy, I decided to go along with her suggestion. When I asked about the cost, they told me we would need to invest $400,000, which would be matched by Sam, to purchase the mineral rights from the Owen family. Concerned about the substantial sum, I questioned their certainty, but Lissy insisted it was an opportunity too good to pass up, with Sam agreeing. Lissy then mentioned the need to sign a partnership agreement and grant her power of attorney to act on my behalf when I was out of town. She handed me a stack of papers, and I signed several documents. As soon as Sam left, Lissy, unusually eager, pulled me to the bedroom. Despite her initial hesitation about the open window, the thrill seemed to excite her. Lissy made love to me twice more that weekend, but by Monday morning, as I headed back to South Carolina, I felt uneasy about her involvement with Sam in the business deal. My distrust of Sam and the large financial commitment added to my discomfort. Adding to my concern, during our passionate weekend, Lissy never said, "I love you," something she always did before. This made me question whether her actions were driven by love or just fulfilling her needs. 3 weeks later, when I returned home, Lissy greeted me with a distant kiss on the cheek and seemed uninterested in my life. When I asked about the business plan, she gave a brief, unenthusiastic response. She was standoffish all weekend, and when I asked her about it, she claimed she was just tired and hinted that my frequent absences weren't helping. For the first time since our marriage, I was relieved to leave for South Carolina on Monday. Lissy's coldness persisted during our phone calls, though she eventually warmed up slightly. However, she continued to deny anything was wrong, which made me worry about our marriage. I tried calling at different times, and while Lissy always answered, her attitude didn't ease my concerns. She seemed annoyed by my calls, though she never said so directly. Believing that my absence was the issue, I put more effort into making her happy when I was home, but her attitude remained unchanged as the months passed. In January 2017, as I prepared to head home for a long weekend, I called Lissy to let her know my travel plans. This time she sounded unusually happy and warned me about icy roads due to recent snowfall. Her tone was more loving than it had been in months, making me hopeful that whatever had been bothering her was over. When I arrived home, I noticed tire tracks in the snow leading to my side of the garage, too wide to be from Lissy's Mazda. The tracks suggested a car had been in the garage before the snowfall and made me think of Sam's Porsche. Lissy greeted me warmly in the kitchen, but I was suspicious and asked if she had been out in the snow. She said she hadn't, but I didn't mention the tracks. By February, I was convinced Lissy was having an affair, likely with Sam. To confirm my suspicions, I made an unannounced trip home a week early. I rented a car, parked it a quarter-mile away, and entered the house quietly. After checking the garage and finding nothing unusual, I hid in the basement to wait for Lissy, determined to confront her if she returned with Sam. I could hear Sam's Porsche long before it even reached the driveway, so I moved to the kitchen door to eavesdrop on their conversation as they came inside. I was waiting for the right moment to interrupt, but when I heard what they were talking about, I was completely taken aback. "I don't understand why you're so hard on yourself. This isn't your fault. He made his choice and he didn't care how much it would hurt you," Sam said. "I know, but isn't there another way to handle this?" Lissy asked. "Well, you could file for divorce and claim adultery, but that would take at least 6 months. That means we couldn't be together until the divorce is finalized. If he finds out we're together, he could countersue, and you'd lose your advantage. After all that, you'd only get half of everything, and we need all of it for our plans. My way will get you everything you want, and after he pulled you away from your friends and your job, don't you think you deserve everything?" Sam explained. I didn't force Lissy to move anywhere. We both agreed that moving to Raleigh was the right decision for us. It was hard for me to process what I was hearing. Did Lissy think I had cheated on her? Where did she get that idea? And she wanted a divorce to be with Sam. My stomach knotted up. I wasn't worried about the divorce. That was inevitable once I learned she was cheating. But if she thought I was unfaithful, why didn't she confront me? Clearly, she didn't care enough to find out the truth. "But won't I be the prime suspect?" Lissy said. "What are they even suspecting her of? What the hell are they planning?" My mind was racing with these questions, spinning like a top. I had to force myself to focus on their conversation, which was hard given my state of shock. Who will even notice he's missing? Once I become Dan Taylor, nobody will be looking for him, and his body will never be found. After that, we'll sell this house and move to Colorado. I can make myself look enough like Dan to get a Colorado driver's license. Then we'll be in the clear, Sam said. I thought, oh my God, they're planning to kill me, and Sam wants to take over my life. Why the hell would he want to be me? What's in it for him? So when are we going to do it? Lissy asked. We'll do it after he files your taxes. We don't want any trouble with the IRS, and by then he should have his annual bonus. I'll handle everything. All you need to do is keep him satisfied and clueless until we're ready, Sam replied. I was in shock. I thought Lissy loved me. But here she was, on the other side of the door, conspiring to have me killed with that bastard Sam. I was still on the basement stairs when I heard Lissy set the alarm, trapping me inside. Since disarming it would reveal my presence, I retreated to the basement, sitting in an old chair, trying to process what I overheard. I'd never cheated on Lissy. How could she think I did? Was she really plotting with Sam to kill me? I realized I had no proof to take to the police, and while stopping them was crucial, I wanted to ensure they were punished for plotting against me. Anger surged through me as I considered my options. knowing I had to stay hidden until morning. I forced myself to sleep in the chair. In the morning, after hearing both cars leave, I went upstairs, found their breakfast remnants, and cooked myself some eggs and toast. As I ate, I began planning. I was confident I could thwart Lissy and Sam's scheme, but I also wanted to ensure they couldn't profit if something went wrong. I realized I had until April to act. Although I briefly wondered if convincing Lissy I hadn't cheated might change her mind, I concluded it didn't matter. Plotting to kill me while sleeping with Sam was unforgivable. They both needed to pay. In the next 2 weeks, I canceled my life insurance, changed my will to leave everything to a charity, and closely monitored our bank and investment accounts. By the end of March, I had done everything I could to prepare, but I still lacked the evidence needed to put them away. I knew my next step was getting inside Sam's house. On the first Thursday in April, I returned from Charleston unannounced at 5 p.m. I parked my truck near an abandoned gas station on Pine Valley Road, a short distance from our house. Though it was a 15-minute drive from there, I could see the house and waited to spot Lissy. Her Mazda passed by at 5:16 p.m., and I watched for Sam's Porsche, but instead, a brand new midnight blue Porsche passed 5 minutes later. I suspected Sam might have bought a new car, and my suspicion grew when I saw the blue Porsche pull into my garage through binoculars. After waiting half an hour to ensure they didn't leave, I drove to Sam's house, located in a secluded wooded area. I parked nearby and approached the house, which didn't appear to have an alarm system. Searching outside, I found a hidden key above the back door. Inside, I started my search in Sam's study. On his desk, I found a laptop powered on and accessed it using a list of passwords hidden under the computer. Scanning through his emails, I found nothing incriminating. No correspondence with Lissy and nothing of business interest until I discovered an email from a real estate agent in Rapid City, South Dakota, dated March 5th. Dear Mr. Taylor, as your agent, I'm pleased to inform you that Mr. Kelly has accepted your $1.5 million offer for the Black Hills Saloon Hotel and Casino on Main Street in Rapid City. I'll send the signed contract via FedEx as soon as I have it. We can schedule the closing with Mr. Kelly's lawyers once they receive the due diligence check from you. Mr. Kelly hopes to close the deal in early May. I look forward to meeting you at the closing. Sincerely, William Simmons ________________________________________________________________________________________________________________ I was stunned. Sam was buying a hotel and casino in Rapid City using my name. Was he using the money we gave him for mineral rights to fund this? Was this part of his plan to steal my identity? I printed the letter and continued searching. Though most emails were unremarkable, I found a link to his bank account. There was no record of our $400,000 deposit, but there was a check written to Taylor Enterprises, LLC. Had Lissy and Sam created a company in my name? I Googled LLC and learned it stands for Limited Liability Company, which can protect personal assets from lawsuits. I wondered if they created Taylor Enterprises, LLC to buy mineral rights or for something else. Was the Rapid City purchase linked to this LLC? The more I uncovered, the more questions arose. In Sam's bookmarks, I found a link labeled Taylor, which led to the website for Taylor Enterprises. The homepage featured a photo of Sam and Lissy, identified as Daniel and Lisa Taylor, president and treasurer of Taylor Enterprises, LLC. Sam was already taking over my identity. The website described Taylor Enterprises as an investment company focused on mergers and acquisitions. It seemed incomplete, and an internet search yielded no results, suggesting the site hadn't been made public yet. I found nothing else useful on Sam's computer, so I searched the desk. In the top drawer, I discovered a loaded 9mm pistol and left it there. In the next drawer, I found an open FedEx envelope containing the purchase contract for the Black Hills Saloon, Casino, and Hotel. The contract, offering $1.5 million, was signed by Daniel Taylor, but it wasn't my signature. It seemed Sam had forged it. I also found 2 notebooks, one blue and one green. The green notebook detailed Sam's plan over the past couple of years, laid out like an outline for a book. The plan, which included my murder, involved Sam, Lissy, and me. Sam had specifically searched for a married couple around his age with good careers, no kids, and new to the area. He wanted a wife who was attractive, assertive, and trusted by her husband, who needed to work long hours or travel often. He found Lissy on LinkedIn, researched us thoroughly, and decided we were the perfect targets. He described Lissy as smart and confident, sure he could seduce her, while seeing me as someone he could easily manipulate. His plan began in 2015, when he posed as an investment analyst to meet Lissy at a broker seminar. He discovered that Lissy appreciated compliments on her intelligence and style, not just her looks. After a few months, he persuaded her to have lunch with him, and they began meeting regularly. Sam's next move was to send Lissy an anonymous note claiming I was having an affair in Charleston. This sparked Lissy's suspicions, and Sam easily fueled her anger. He convinced her to wait for proof before taking action. That proof came in the form of another anonymous note with photos showing me with a blonde woman, supposedly having dinner and leaving my hotel room. The photos were clearly doctored, as I had never met that woman. Once Lissy was angry enough to consider divorce, Sam seduced her. Their affair began over a year ago. Sam told Lissy he loved her and wanted to marry her after the divorce, but advised her to keep quiet about my supposed cheating. He convinced her to start hiding money to prevent me from getting any in the divorce. Sam played on Lissy's resentment, reminding her how unfair I had been by moving her to North Carolina, away from her friends and family, and then allegedly cheating on her. He got her so angry that she wanted to leave me penniless. Sam pointed out that in North Carolina's no-fault divorce courts, I would still get half of everything. When Lissy finally expressed that it wasn't fair for me to get anything, Sam suggested a way for her to get everything, planning my murder. Over a couple of months, she began to agree and started plotting with him. The idea of buying mineral rights was a scam from the start, designed to drain our savings and put the money out of my reach. Lissy assured Sam that I was clueless about finances and trusted her completely. She convinced me that buying mineral rights was a great investment, leading me to sign the documents to start the LLC and hand over all our savings. Like a trusting fool, I did. On page 46 of the notebook, Sam detailed a grave he dug 30 miles north with GPS coordinates. He planned to kill me with cyanide in my coffee, then bury me and assume my identity as Dan Taylor. They'd resign from my job, sell my house, and leave town. Lissy helped form Taylor Enterprises LLC, but might not have known about Sam's Black Hills Saloon purchase. The last page of the notebook had the GPS location of Lissy's grave in Nevada, which she might not appreciate. I couldn't go to the police with the notebook since I stole it. Sam could claim it was just a book outline. Instead, I decided to confront them, let Lissy read the notebook, record the meeting, and then contact the police. I waited until Friday, hoping Sam would stay with Lissy so I could retrieve the green notebook. After returning everything to its place and staying at a nearby motel, I used the GPS coordinates to find my grave. Driving 30 miles north and following a farm path for about 800 yards, halfway down a wooded hillside ending in a swampy area, I found a grave site, a dirt pile on plywood covered with a tarp and a hole about 6 feet long and 4 feet deep. Was this to be my final resting place? At 5:15 p.m., I parked by the gas station and saw Lissy drive by. I waited until nearly 6 p.m. to see if Sam would drive by, then checked his house. The blue Porsche was in the driveway. At 6:30 p.m., Sam left, and I followed him to the gas station, then saw him return to my driveway and enter the garage. After Sam's garage door closed, I went to his house, checked his email, and grabbed the notebook and the Black Hills Saloon Hotel and Casino purchase contract. I also took the Colt from his drawer for protection. I returned to my house around 8 p.m., parked outside, and entered through the garage. The Colt was hidden in my belt. In the kitchen, I heard music and voices from the living room. When I peeked in, I saw Lissy and Sam without clothes on the sofa. Lissy had semen leaking from her, and they were drinking wine. With the music on, they didn't hear me. I was so furious I almost skipped the confrontation and shot them both. I stepped back into the kitchen and set my phone to record audio. Taking a deep breath, I exhaled slowly before walking into the room. "I guess you weren't expecting me this weekend," I said loudly enough to be heard over the music. Sam spun around so quickly that he fell off the sofa, and Lissy screamed, dropping her wine glass. The situation was almost funny. Sam on the floor looking up at me while Lissy scrambled to cover herself with spilled wine mixing with her bodily fluids on the leather sofa. "Why don't you two get dressed, and then we can have a talk?" I suggested. After the initial shock, Lissy seemed unfazed as she went upstairs to our bedroom. Sam picked up his clothes and began dressing right there. Once Sam was dressed, I said, "Let's sit down and wait for Lissy to return." Let's not make a big deal out of this, Sam suggested. Are you kidding? You're sleeping with my wife and I'm supposed to just brush it off? This is a huge deal to me, I said. Sam raised his hands in a gesture of understanding. We waited in silence until Lissy came downstairs in a bathrobe. She glanced at me, then at Sam. I noticed a faint smirk on Sam's face as he said, I could use a cup of coffee. How about you, Lissy? Why don't you make a pot? Lissy appeared calm when she walked into the room, but her expression changed to worry when Sam asked her to make coffee. I realized from her reaction that Sam must have signaled her to poison my drink. It seemed like Sam was ready to take me out. From where I was sitting, I could see Lissy in the kitchen, preparing the coffee and filling the machine with water. After she was out of view, I figured she was getting ready to make what she thought would be my final cup of coffee. As she didn't return to the living room, the silence grew increasingly uncomfortable. So, how long have you two been having an affair? I asked. Sam grinned and replied, We've been in love for just over a year now. We sat in silence for about 10 minutes until the coffee maker made its usual hissing sound, signaling that the coffee was done. After another 5 minutes, Sam called out, Hey, if you're free, bring in the coffee. In a minute, Lissy answered. A few minutes later, Lissy appeared with the cups, placing them on a tray before setting the tray on the coffee table. She handed me my cup first, and then gave Sam his. When she finally sat down, she looked at me with a sorrowful expression. I hoped that meant she felt guilty about what she was doing. Sam took a sip of his coffee and smiled at Lissy. I picked up my cup, held it for a moment, and then set it back down. It's too hot, I said, placing the cup back on the table. So Lissy, why? Why did you let yourself be drawn to this piece of trash? Sam smirked again as he sipped his coffee and said to Lissy, You might as well tell him. It doesn't matter now. You were never around and Dan was, Lissy said. He convinced me I'd be better off with him than with you. Her answer seemed odd to me. She didn't accuse me of infidelity, which I expected would be her go-to excuse. Sam also seemed unsettled by her response, looking displeased. I picked up my cup once more and said, That's a pretty weak excuse for having an affair. Sam glanced at Lissy and said, It's more complicated than you think. This isn't just an affair. Lissy will be my wife once the divorce is finalized. I pretended to take a sip from my cup while watching Lissy's reaction. She was focused on Sam, who was eyeing me, clearly waiting for me to drink from the poisoned cup. When I set the cup back down, Sam's frustration was evident. I decided it was time to end the pretense. Lissy, could you please fetch the notebook I left on the kitchen table? I asked. As Lissy stood up, I discreetly drew the Colt from under my jacket, keeping it hidden behind my right thigh. What notebook? Sam asked, looking puzzled. While you were busy with my wife last night, I visited your place. I found a rather interesting notebook in your desk, I said. The green one with your plans for Lissy and me. When Lissy returned with the notebook, Sam snatched it from her and said, It's just some silly notes I made for fun. Did you let Lissy read it? I think she should, I replied. Lissy remained silent, just sitting there and staring at Sam. Lissy doesn't need to see that, Sam said, trying to downplay the situation. Well, the police will be very interested in it when they arrive, especially once they discover the cyanide in the coffee Lissy made for me. You two are going to be in serious trouble, I warned. Sam stood up and moved toward me but stopped when he saw the Colt in my hand. Sit back down, I ordered. Sam picked up his coffee cup, looking as if he might throw it at me. I stood up and aimed the gun at his head, saying, Sit down and be quiet. Sam complied and sat back down, as did I. Lissy and Sam both seemed to be waiting for me to speak. Sam tried to maintain his composure as he sipped his coffee, but Lissy looked extremely anxious. Finally, Lissy spoke up. Dan, I'm really sorry for everything that's happened. You don't have to worry. I didn't put anything in your coffee. Sam shot Lissy an angry look and demanded, What did you do? I found the notebook in the kitchen while making the coffee and read it. Everything you told me was a lie. I was ready to end Dan because I believed your deceit, and now I discover that you plan to end me. I was so foolish, but I'm not anymore. I put the poison in your coffee, you jerk. Sam shouted, Damn you! And lunged at Lissy. She moved away, causing him to crash to the floor. As he tried to get up, his breathing became labored and his lips started turning blue. He collapsed again, convulsing and foaming at the mouth. Within minutes, he was dead. Lissy sat on the sofa, tears streaming down her face as she looked at Sam's lifeless body. With tears still flowing, Lissy looked at me and said, I'm sorry, Dan. You should call the police now. When they arrive, I'll confess that I put the poison in his coffee. I held the phone ready to dial, but as I considered what to tell the police, I realized this situation might have serious consequences for me as well. Looking at Sam's body on the floor made me feel nauseous, so I walked to the kitchen and sat at the table. Lissy followed and took a seat across from me. She buried her face in her hands and said, I can't believe I ruined my life like this. I let that bastard destroy everything. I'm so sorry. I deserve whatever happens to me now. When I didn't reply, Lissy asked, Aren't you going to call? Could you get me a beer while I figure this out? I replied. Sam isn't going anywhere, so why should we rush? I sat quietly for 10 or 15 minutes before taking a sip of the beer and finishing it before speaking again. How would you like to avoid jail time? I asked. Lissy responded. How could I? I killed him, and you saw me do it. Plus, you have that notebook with his plan to off you with my help. I also recorded our conversation. How many people know about you and Sam? Nobody knows except for you. We made sure no one saw us together in public, and I never mentioned the affair to anyone, Lissy replied. Why did you ask if I wanted to avoid going to jail? If you want to stay out of prison, we need to deal with the problem in the other room, I said, pointing toward the living room. Deal with him? How do we do that? Lissy asked. Since he kindly left us an empty grave, we'll follow his plan but with a change. The grave will be for him instead of me. Lissy's face went ashen as she looked at me. You want to bury him? No, we will bury him. I need you to empty his pockets. Give me his car keys, wallet, and anything else he's carrying. Can't you do that? He was your lover and you killed him, so it's your job. Lissy went into the living room, took Sam's wallet from his back pocket, and then rolled him onto his back to search his front pockets. After she was done, she handed me Sam's wallet and keys. While you get dressed, I'm going to drive my truck into the garage, I said. I had to back Sam's Porsche out of the garage before parking my truck. While in the Porsche, I briefly fantasized about owning it, but quickly dismissed it as a problem to address later. Once the Porsche was outside, I parked my truck as close to the kitchen door as possible. Inside, Lissy, dressed in jeans and a sweatshirt, was waiting in the kitchen. We dragged the body to the garage, loaded it into my truck bed, and covered it with a tarp. I instructed Lissy to get in the truck while I checked for a shovel and hand truck in the back. The first 10 minutes of the drive were silent until I asked Lissy why she had betrayed me. She explained that Sam had convinced her I was cheating and claimed he was in love with her. He persuaded her that leaving me was necessary for their future together. When I asked why she chose to end me instead of just divorcing me, Lissy revealed it was for the money. Sam promised that removing me would allow them to build Taylor Enterprises and make millions. She admitted she was manipulated by her anger and guilt, and knew forgiveness would be difficult, if not impossible, for both of us. I didn't respond to Lissy's explanation. Instead, I asked why Sam was planning to take over my identity. Lissy said Sam intended to ensure no one would come looking for me by making it seem like we had quit our jobs, sold the house, and moved to Colorado. When I inquired about the new Porsche, Lissy revealed that Sam had bought it a few days ago. I expressed concern that the car might be a problem and suggested selling it to avoid attracting attention. Lissy then laughed and said the car wasn't a problem at all. It was actually leased by Taylor Enterprises for the president. Since the car was registered to Daniel Taylor and I was Daniel Taylor, the issue was resolved. Excited at the thought of owning the car, I quickly refocused on our situation and asked about Taylor Enterprises. Lissy explained that the company was set up to buy troubled firms, break them up, and sell off their assets, starting with small companies and expanding as profits grew. I compared the plan to a smash-and-grab operation where a gang raids a store for valuables. Lissy didn't like the comparison, but accepted the description. I then asked her what she knew about the Black Hills Saloon Hotel and Casino. She was unfamiliar with it. I handed her the purchase contract and the email from the real estate agent. After reading them under the overhead light, Lissy concluded that Taylor Enterprises would need to proceed with the purchase unless we could find a way to cancel the contract. Lissy confirmed that Sam had never discussed the plan with her. We drove in silence to the gravesite. With only a sliver of moonlight, I used a battery-powered work light to illuminate the area. I removed the plywood covering the hole and leaned it against the truck. We slid Sam's body onto my hand truck and rolled it to the hole. Tilting the hand truck, I let Sam's body fall into the grave, landing face up with a smirk that I noted with a muttered remark. Disturbed by the sight, I moved on to cover the body. I shoveled dirt from the plywood into the hole and with Lissy's help, filled the rest of the grave. We then loaded the tarp, plywood, and hand truck back into my truck and covered the grave with dead branches. The entire process took less than 20 minutes. We returned home in silence. I parked my truck outside and put the Porsche in the garage. Lissy went inside and handed me a beer when I entered the kitchen. I told her that life would continue as usual, with me heading back to Charleston on Sunday and her returning to work on Monday. I made it clear that our relationship was over and instructed her to find a lawyer and file for divorce while I was in Charleston. I added that she needed to handle the dismantling of Taylor Enterprises and that we would discuss things further the next day. I would be staying in the guest room. The next morning, Lissy had already made coffee. She reassured me that she hadn't added anything to it and joined me at the table. Lissy said we couldn't dismantle Taylor Enterprises yet because of a clause in the purchase contract for the Black Hills Saloon Hotel and Casino. We needed to pay a $200,000 advance for due diligence before April 10th, which we wouldn't get back if we backed out. If we refused to pay, we'd face a lawsuit and end up paying the $200,000 plus court costs. Lissy suggested we should at least investigate the casino and keep the Porsche, which was leased by Taylor Enterprises. After breakfast, I planned to move the plywood and tarp from the gravesite to Sam's garage to avoid any connection to our house. Lissy would search Sam's house for anything linking us to him. At Sam's house, Lissy checked the bedroom and clothes while I packed up the study. I shut down the computer, gathered papers, and found several keys, putting everything into a box. I almost tossed the blue notebook into the box without checking it, but then realized I hadn't read it. The blue notebook detailed a plan from 2 years prior involving a young woman named Claire. Sam had conned her into investing in North Carolina land. Instead of leaving town as planned, he stole a car, forced Claire's car off a cliff, and fled with her money. I handed Lissy the blue notebook and suggested she read it, hoping it would make her feel better about her actions. After reading it, Lissy cried, lamenting her failure to recognize Sam's true nature. Once she calmed down, I asked if she found anything during her search. Lissy found only a few restaurant receipts, which she discarded. She mentioned needing to return on Monday to put out Sam's trash can and asked if there was anything else to check. I said no, as I had already searched the hall closet and kitchen. We'd review the contents of the desk box at home. Back home, Lissy and I sorted through the papers, discarding anything unimportant. We found the closing statement for Sam's house, which was owned by another LLC called Eldorado Holdings. I discovered files related to Eldorado on Sam's laptop and gave it to Lissy to examine. While Lissy studied the Eldorado files, I found a receipt for a safety deposit box rental at Central Bank in Raleigh in the name of Daniel Taylor. I wondered if one of the 5 keys from Sam's desk was for that box. 2 keys seemed promising, one for a safety deposit box and another for a post office box. Lissy noted that Eldorado had significant assets, including $700,000 remaining after Sam's $400,000 investment, Eldorado's properties, and a house in the Cayman Islands. She planned to check if the key opened the Raleigh P.O. box the next day, but was unsure how to handle the safety deposit box. I speculated that one of the other keys might be for the Cayman Islands house or a bank account there. We spent the day discussing Taylor Enterprises and the Black Hills Saloon Hotel and Casino. We agreed to pay the $200,000 due diligence by April and visit Rapid City in May to find a reason to back out of the purchase if needed. Until then, I would return to Charleston for work, while Lissy resumed her job. Before leaving on Sunday, I asked Lissy if I could trust her now that Sam was gone. She assured me we were in this together and would need each other to succeed. I told her I'd see her in 2 weeks. During my 2 weeks in Charleston, I completed my projects and took a week off. When I got home, Lissy updated me on her activities. She had been checking the Eldorado P.O. box daily, finding only junk mail and a Visa bill, which she paid using Sam's password to access Eldorado's bank accounts. I planned a trip to the Cayman Islands to check out Eldorado's house. Lissy wanted to join but couldn't get time off on short notice. I arrived in Grand Cayman on Sunday at 2 p.m. I took a cab to the 2-bedroom bungalow with a Caribbean view and found it furnished, but dusty and musty. I emailed Lissy about the house, and she suggested hiring a cleaning service to maintain it monthly, funded by Eldorado. We planned to use it as a vacation home and potentially rent it out. I enjoyed the weather and beach until Thursday before returning home. When I got home, Lissy proposed merging Eldorado with Taylor Enterprises. This would allow us to sell Sam's house and keep the Cayman house. To do this, I'd need to impersonate Sam, David Huffman, to get a lawyer to give Lissy power of attorney for the merger. Lissy suggested growing a mustache and having her style my hair to resemble Sam's photos. She had a lawyer lined up who wouldn't be suspicious. Lissy planned to create a merger agreement and a buyout agreement for Sam's share of Eldorado. We would pay Sam's share into an offshore Cayman account and later withdraw the money. Lissy also instructed me to open the safety deposit box at Central Bank. It took me 2 weeks to grow a suitable mustache. Lissy styled my hair, and we successfully fooled the lawyer. While Lissy worked on the merger, I went to Central Bank to access the safety deposit box. Inside, I found $50,000 in cash, a passport with Sam's picture but in my name, and a passbook showing over $1 million in a Grand Cayman bank account. I took a few deep breaths, then collected the items, including several papers and a card with phone numbers and passwords, and put everything in my briefcase. When I got home, I showed Lissy what I took from the safety deposit box. She took $10,000 for herself and gave me $40,000. Lissy used the passwords from the card to access Sam's Grand Cayman bank account. Since the account was numbered and unregistered, we could control the funds. Lissy changed the account password and suggested we leave the money there for future use. With Sam out of the picture, we focused on Taylor Enterprises and the Black Hills Saloon Hotel and Casino. We planned to visit the property to evaluate if we could exit the purchase deal. If not, we'd need to learn how to run a hotel and casino. On July 19, 2017, I reflected on the past year while having a drink. 10 months earlier, Lissy and her lover, Sam Donovan, had plotted to kill me. After confronting them, Sam died. Now I was president and CEO of Taylor Enterprises, with Lissy as CFO. In May, we inspected the Black Hills Saloon Hotel and Casino, found no grounds to void the contract, and proceeded with the purchase. I moved to Rapid City to manage renovations, while Lissy managed finances and continued her brokerage work in North Carolina. Over the past few months, Lissy and I renovated the Black Hills Hotel and Casino, now renamed Taylor's 1870 Saloon, for its grand reopening on September 21st. I admired the completed renovation as I headed to my truck. While reaching for the truck door, a voice asked if I was Dan Taylor. Before I could react, 3 men assaulted me. 2 restrained my arms with zip ties, while the third covered my head with a bag. They forced me against a wall, and one punched me to silence me. A car approached, and I was pushed into the back seat and forced down to the floor. I feared the worst. Was this about the Black Hills property or a betrayal by Lissy? After about half an hour, the car stopped, entered a garage, and I was dragged into a house. They led me down a hallway and into a room where they shoved me into a chair and told me to stay quiet. With the bag over my head, I could only see the floor. One abductor announced, "We got him!" followed by a gravelly voice asking if I gave any trouble, to which another voice responded with laughter. "No trouble." The gravelly voice then ordered, "Go get CJ." I had no idea who CJ was or what was happening. I immediately recognized it was a woman approaching by the clacking of her heels on the hardwood floor and the intoxicating scent of her perfume. As she neared, I could see her stylish shoes and delicate ankles. Despite my dire situation, these details caught my attention. Without warning, she struck me hard on the left side of my jaw, leaving me dazed. I braced for another blow, but instead she removed the bag from my head. It took a moment to focus, but I saw a woman with big, dark brown eyes, a pretty face, and long, almost black hair. Scars on her forehead and chin did not detract from her beauty. After a brief stare, she turned and shouted, "That's not him! You brought me the wrong man!" Confusion settled in as one of the abductors insisted I was Dan Taylor, the person they were supposed to grab. CJ, the woman, was angry and demanded to know who I was. I introduced myself as Dan Taylor, which only seemed to frustrate her more. She asked if I knew Howard Mason, and I replied I had never heard of him. CJ then turned to the middle-aged man with the gravelly voice and complained about the mistakes of her team. Jimmy, another abductor, pointed out that I had claimed to be Dan Taylor and questioned whether the picture was of me or not. CJ asked to see the picture and held it up in front of me. The image was of David Huffman standing next to the midnight blue 2014 Porsche, the same car parked in my garage. I could think of no lie to extricate myself from this situation, so I told the truth. I admitted knowing Huffman as a scam artist who tried to steal my identity. When CJ asked where Huffman was, I requested she cut the zip ties cutting into my wrists in exchange for the information. CJ ordered Jimmy to cut me loose. Once my hands were free, I told CJ that the last time I saw Huffman, he was in North Carolina and had just bought the car in the picture. Noticing CJ's anger, I asked how much he had taken from her. CJ sat down in front of me and revealed that Huffman, under the name Howard Mason, had stolen over $500,000 from her inheritance. She explained that she had met him 5 years ago when he promised to use her money to buy land in North Carolina and later sell it for a profit. After a car accident kept her in the hospital, she found herself unable to locate him and had been searching ever since. I mentioned that Huffman's actions against CJ were detailed in a blue notebook I had. When I asked if the C in CJ stood for Claire, she was surprised. I offered to show her the information at my house in Rapid City, suggesting it would help her understand the situation better. CJ was wary, but agreed to come, bringing Jimmy and his friends along. On the drive back to Rapid City, I sat between Jimmy and Dan while CJ drove. Upon arriving home, I warned Jimmy about a Colt in my safe and asked him to wait as I handled it myself. I opened the safe, handed it to Jimmy, and retrieved 2 notebooks. I then brought them into the living room, suggesting Jimmy and Dan wait in the kitchen to keep things discreet. I offered CJ a drink, and she opted for a bourbon on the rocks, humorously noting this wasn't a date. I explained how CJ had traced me through a Porsche lease, confirming my identity with the hotel in Rapid City. I shared how Lissy and I ended up in Raleigh, discovered her affair with Huffman, and their plot to kill me. I showed CJ the green notebook detailing Huffman's plan to steal my identity and later kill Lissy. CJ asked about the outcome, and I handed her the blue notebook, suggesting she read it alone. When I returned to the living room, CJ was in tears, realizing Huffman had deliberately tried to kill her. She gave the car keys to Jimmy and asked him and Dan to return to the house while she and I discussed things privately. Jimmy handed her my Colt before leaving. After being alone, CJ asked if I was a threat, and I reassured her I wasn't. She explained her scars were from a 2012 accident where she fell off a cliff, leading to severe injuries and memory loss. I shared that Lissy had used cyanide to kill Huffman, avoiding police involvement to prevent financial complications for Taylor Enterprises. Lissy and I were now divorced but continued as business partners, with her handling finances and me managing operations. CJ, who introduced herself as Claire Johnson, a CPA from Erie, Pennsylvania, and whose father rented the house where I was held, asked to stay the night and borrow a t-shirt. I agreed. The next morning I confirmed CJ's story with Lissy and offered to drive CJ back after she packed. CJ recognized the Porsche from the photo with Howard and was surprised it was now mine, explaining it was registered in my name since Howard had used my identity. CJ said the house was in Sturgis. I invited her for lunch in Rapid City, promising to discuss something important afterward. She met me at O'Hara's Irish pub and then joined me at my office, where I showed her a spreadsheet of the Black Hills Hotel and casino's finances. I explained the spreadsheets. One detailed the $1.5 million purchase price for the hotel, including payments, loans, and costs. CJ, a CPA, was frustrated but understood. The other spreadsheet covered Taylor Enterprises' startup funds, showing $400,000 each from Lissy and Huffman, plus $890,000 from merging with Eldorado Holdings, including Huffman's house, sold for $490,000. I explained that the $1.5 million likely included the $400,000 Huffman took from CJ. Shocked, CJ considered 2 options: a $400,000 annuity, providing $1,800 monthly for 20 years, or joining us as an equal partner and CFO of Taylor Enterprises with a salary, benefits, and bonuses. CJ worried about her teaching job. I suggested she could work remotely or full-time, which I preferred. Lissy would be vice president, focusing on investments. CJ was given 2 weeks to decide. She stayed for the grand opening of the Black Hills Hotel and Casino and Taylor's 1870 saloon, enjoying the slots while her father played blackjack. By Friday, with no call from CJ, I worried she might choose the annuity and stay in Erie. On Saturday, CJ arrived unannounced, ready to start as my new partner. She moved into my spare bedroom and later found an apartment near the hotel. Expressing my reluctance for her to leave, I admitted I enjoyed her hugs. CJ suggested a more intimate gesture, leading to a passionate kiss and taking us to the bedroom. Our kissing grew more intense as we undressed each other. "Are you sure this is what you want?" I asked. For the next several minutes, we talked about what we had just done, and then CJ said, "If we are going to have any kind of a relationship, you will have to promise me that you will not date or have closeness with other women. I can commit to that if you agree to do the same," I said. After our first night together, CJ didn't move out but also didn't officially move in. She left her belongings in the spare bedroom, yet spent every night with me. 2 months later, Lissy visited Rapid City to meet CJ. They quickly warmed to each other, sharing a laugh over their history with 2 men, one good and one bad. After Lissy and CJ went to lunch, they returned in high spirits. Lissy updated me on her new boyfriend, Dr. Aaron Walters from Raleigh, and suggested discussing Taylor Enterprises with CJ. The next morning, a visitor arrived at the hotel, a private detective named Roger Simpson from Houston. He was looking for Larry Taylor, who had stolen $800,000 from clients and promised to invest in a Rapid City casino. Simpson showed a photo of a younger Huffman, which CJ and Lissy didn't recognize. Simpson wanted to know if Taylor was involved with the casino, hotel, and saloon, now owned by Taylor Enterprises. CJ confirmed that she, Lissy, and I owned the businesses. Simpson left, acknowledging the case as a dead end. I advised CJ and Lissy to keep the visit confidential and refocus on our work. CJ questioned if Simpson suspected them of lying, but I suggested we move on. The Black Hills properties exceeded expectations, with the hotel at nearly 80% occupancy and the casino busy daily. I proposed a vacation to the Cayman Islands in October, which CJ gladly accepted. On Grand Cayman, I proposed to CJ, and she accepted enthusiastically. We married at Rapid City Town Hall with a reception at Taylor's 1870 saloon. Lissy and her boyfriend were there, and they later married in Las Vegas, where CJ and I were witnesses. By June 2020, CJ and I had a 1-year-old daughter and another on the way. Greg Hadley, our head of security, reported 2 men acting suspiciously at the casino, taking pictures and then entering the saloon. The men, John Benson and Bill Martin, presented a $4 million offer for the hotel, casino, and saloon. I noted the property's high revenue and said a higher offer would be required. They promised to return with a revised offer but refused to reveal their clients. Greg recorded the conversation, which I reviewed with CJ and Lissy. The team discussed the legitimacy of the offer from Benson and Martin. Lissy doubted they believed the property's revenue, but suggested countering any offer they made. CJ considered accepting a higher offer if it came in, suggesting $5 million might be worth it. When Benson and Martin returned with a $5 million offer, it was countered with $6 million. They accepted without hesitation and did not request financials, raising suspicions about their true intentions. After closing the deal, CJ, Brittany, and I moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, where we settled in with our furniture and Porsche. Relations with Lissy improved, and we expanded Taylor Enterprises with new franchises. Our second child, Daniel Taylor Jr., was born in October, and Lissy announced her pregnancy in April. After Lissy's daughter Ashley was born, IRS agent James Seymour called about a potential audit of Taylor Enterprises' origins. I hosted Seymour at our home, introduced him to CJ and Lissy, and he inquired about the Black Hills Hotel and casino sale to the Treadway Syndicate. We only dealt with agents and suspected the $6 million price might involve money laundering. Seymour confirmed the Treadway Syndicate's pattern of overpaying for properties, but found no direct connection to us. Later, during a cookout with Lissy, Aaron, and Ashley, I took a phone call about suspicious activity at the Black Hills Hotel. Greg Hadley, the head of security, reported drug trafficking. Local and state police, joined by the FBI and IRS, raided the hotel, finding hard drugs and revealing the casino was used for money laundering. The Rapid City Police and State Police had seized the property under South Dakota's asset forfeiture law and were offering it to us for $2 million. CJ reacted with shock, and Lissy asked how soon a decision was needed. We had a couple of weeks, but delaying could increase the price due to federal interest. CJ noted the publicity might make the hotel famous, increasing room rates and visitors. We agreed to proceed, but would need to find viable managers for the property to avoid living there full-time. Lissy and CJ were both in favor of the purchase. By March 2023, business at the repurchased Black Hills Hotel and Casino was thriving, with gross revenues over $1.5 million annually. Other ventures were also successful despite the looming threat of the COVID-19 pandemic, which would likely impact Taylor Enterprises. We had sufficient funds in the Grand Cayman Bank to endure the financial strain and planned to keep our employees on as long as possible. Reflecting on the past 7 years, I was astonished by how my fortunes changed, starting with a sociopathic con man who sought wealth through deceit and ended up buried by his own actions. Now, as president and CEO of the company he founded, I inherited his Porsche, took over El Dorado, accessed his Cayman Islands account, and acquired the hotel and casino he coveted. Most importantly, without his interference, I would never have met CJ. In the end, the con man's greed led to his downfall, while it led me to a successful, fulfilling life with a wonderful family.